Fáilte! Welcome back to another episode of Crann Short Stories and Poetry. I'm Terrance Ó Domhnaill, your village scéalaí, returning again this week with more stories and poems from authors around the world. This week I have 3 stories and a poem about the children of Palestine. I continue with the 2 serialized spacefaring stories this week, with a scary science fiction story and a poem I just mentioned. This episode may be a bit shorter than usual, as I had a hard time finding enough decent stories to fill a half hour. Next week, I will start bringing seasonal stories and poetry as I can find them as we get closer to Samhain. So gather around once more and let me read to you under the shade of the Crann beatha, the Tree of Life. And so my first story is the continuing serialized story, The Gravediggers of Orpheus. This is chapter 9 by Catherine Elaine. "You must be effing kidding me," Doc Liz cried out at the sight of Derek and Joe lying on the floor next to the giant green rump of the marble art. Doc was running toward them with a flock of medbots hovering behind her. "Doc, have you ever operated on a marble art?" Derek was trying to catch his breath. "Yeah, in college. We did academic autopsies on them," Doc Liz retorted, whilst examining the green body, twitching in agony. "Please, Doc, he just saved my life." "I'll see what I can do," Doc grunted. Derek and Joe had barely got up when something hit the ship violently. Both landed back on the floor. "To the bridge," Derek bellowed, jumped up and ran onward with Joe following him closely. They heard Doc Liz cursing behind them and the medbot screeching under the weight of the marble art. Doc had to get into the operating room. "The ghoul ship is trying to ram us. They want to take us down, Cap," Jimmy yelled as soon as Derek showed up on the bridge. Derek took the pilot seat, yelling out commands. He tried to maneuver the Vulture 05 away from the ghoul ship. "Why do they attack us, Cap?" Jimmy yelled in despair. It was clear the old Vulture 05 could not escape the technically more advanced ghoul ship. "Dispatch! Come in, dispatch! Inform the ghouls we're gravediggers, damn it! Dispatch, help us!" Derek yelled like a madman, while the Vulture 05 took one blow after another, with the noise of bullets clinking all over the back. "Listen, Cap, Derek, I shouldn't be saying it, but," a hushed voice of the dispatch finally hummed, "the government has registered you as outlaws in rebel forces. It's classified." "What? Why? Come in, dispatch." "Get rid of the Vulture and lay low." Dispatch went quiet. Derek cursed. For some seconds it felt like all hope was lost. But the nature of planet Orpheus was as harsh as it was unpredictable. A thick wall of red mist rose in front of them. Derek steered right into it. The mists of Orpheus were a peculiar phenomenon. Electromagnetic particles the mist contained made navigation within them extremely tricky. Derek knew the ghoul ship would not risk to follow him into the mists. They were trapped in the mist for hours. It demanded constant attention to navigate through without running into a cliff hidden by the thick veil of the red sparkling fog. Derek sat clutching the steering wheel, ready to move his ship away from the possible obstacles. He had avoided hitting cliffs several times. Finally, they drifted into open air. Navigation went back to normal. Derek made the last effort to land the Vulture behind some cliffs near a lonesome building before he leaned back in the pilot seat exhausted. Derek knew this was a fairly unpopular, half-legal bar used by travelers, smugglers, and other scum. A good fit for them now. They were outlaws. "You should hit the showers and get some rest, Cap. We'll keep an eye out for the ghouls." Jimmy nearly shoved his captain into the hallway. Derek was the last one to leave the bridge for the disinfection shower. He was determined to go check upon Doc Liz. She was still operating. Afterward, he planned to go past Sophie's cabin to see if she and her nuke were okay, and, absorbed by his thoughts, Derek noticed Sophie running his way only seconds before she reached him. "Stop!" he screamed. Sophie stopped just inches from his chest. "I haven't been disinfected yet. Derek stuttered. "I just had to make sure you're okay. A nuke fell asleep," Sophie said, breathing rapidly. Derek saw she clearly braced herself not to hold him close. I'm all right. We lost the ghouls." "You should have given me to the ghouls," said Sophie. "It doesn't matter anymore. The dispatch finally contacted us. We're labeled as outlaws." "But once an outlaw for the ghouls, always an outlaw," Derek said bitterly. The two stood listening to the humming and clinking of Vulture's engines. "I'll take a shower. I have to check how Doc Liz is doing." Sophie nodded. "I should go back to a nuke. although she's a sound sleeper. Sophie gave a warm smile. Derek smiled back timidly. As he turned to enter the shower, he heard Sophie whisper, "Would you come to my cabin when you check on Doc Liz, please?" Derek gave a short nod before the door swoosh closed behind him. My second story is entitled Love Your Enemy, a UEC story. This is Chapter 2, Nuts for Chocolate, by Michael Marpong. With the complete withdrawal of UEC's 13th Legion from Altair Prime, the Alliance now had full control of the planet. With a deft hand, Prince Alexio Spectre of Locomotus moved to solidify his position on the planet and, by extension, Earth space as a whole. At first, it was smooth sailing for the men of Locomotus. The local populace welcomed the Alliance as liberators. An honorable man, Alexios forbade his soldiers from exploiting the locals. All the Prince of Locomotus wanted in return from the people of Altair Prime was food for his soldiers. But hence was the problem. There was no food on Altair Prime. With its farmlands dedicated to nothing but cash crops, the planet was utterly dependent on trade for food. Upon hearing this, Alexios resisted the urge to scream. This was the second worst news he had received since he had embarked from Locomotus. The worst was the capture of his sister Arlena by the Earthborn. Hovering dangerously close to the planet Altair Prime was the UEC Waterloo, the flagship of the Cisalpine Legion. There was an air of nervousness throughout the ship. Everyone wondered if there were more Alliance ships, perhaps cloaked, ready to pounce on them. Meanwhile, Commander Green had just received his orders to leave the Altair system entirely. With the ship now getting ready for electro travel, the soldiers could presumably rest easy. But this was not completely the case on the lower levels of the ship, where the brig was located. Down at the brig's entrance, Sergeant Major Marco Accardi was pensive. He took a deep breath. He wasn't sure if what he was about to undertake was a good idea to begin with, but he had to give it a shot, so he did. The man who saluted Marco was the Waterloo's prison guard. There was not much to say about the man. He was of an average build for a soldier, and his helmet covered his face. "What can I do for you, Sarge?" Marco saluted back. "I'm here to see prisoner Arlena Spectre." "Who? Lambda?" "Oh," the guard said knowingly. "She's in cell 3. Thank you." Now that he knew where to go, the sergeant major moved to find his target. It did not take long to find her. It was Marco's first time seeing a girl without her armor. Clearly, Locomotive-powered armor had given her some height. But of some greater importance to the sergeant major, much greater than he cared to admit, was how the girl looked. Her hair was golden blonde, tied in braids. Her skin was light, and she was beautiful. But the strangest part about her were her eyes. Bright violet filled the iris. It was proof that she was not of Earth. So this is the woman under that armor, thought Accardi. Quite the contrast. Marco and Lena were now separated by a huge bulletproof glass. And it was a good thing that the two were separated. To say that she was upset to see him would have been a complete understatement. If looks could kill, Sergeant Major Accardi would have been KIA right about now. "You," Arlena said with hatred. To his credit, Marco remained calm. "Hello, Miss Spectre." "You have fooled me into giving away my identity," she said. "No more. Begone, Earthborn." Rather than repaying the girl's harshness in kind, Marco smiled. "Listen," he said, "I'm here to check up on you. It can't be easy here being alone as a prisoner, especially since all your comrades died. I'm sure you wish you could have joined them." Arlena maintained her frown. She was suspicious. "What do you want?" "As I said, I want to check up on you. Be honest, you must be feeling lonely being stuck in this cell with no one but the prison guard to talk to." The response was silence, awkward silence, and it remained that way for a good minute. Accardi sighed. He wasn't getting anywhere with her like this. But he had his trump card, and it was time to play it. He reached into his pocket and took it out. At the edge of the prison glass was a small hole, made to transfer over small items to prisoners. And what Marco had was small enough, so he put it through. Arlena's eyes now showed curiosity. Slowly, she moved her hand towards this object. It was a small rectangle, silver in color. "Go on, take it," Marco said. "It's yours. Don't forget to open the wrapping." Still curious, Arlena did as was told. The Lambda's surprisingly delicate fingers ripped through the silver, revealing something brown. "What's this?" "I know for a fact we don't give prisoners anything but those disgusting meal rations to eat. Thought you might want some sweets." "But what is it exactly?" asked Arlena. It's chocolate, silly girl, Marco smiled. Don't you have them back where you're from? No. Icardi shrugged. Your ancestors must have forgotten about them. Arlena frowned and crossed her arms. Humph! What's wrong? Arlena's eyes were narrowed, showing suspicion. How do I know you're not trying to get rid of me? For all I know, this could be poisoned. Marco grinned and then chuckled. Inspector, if I wanted to kill you, I would have finished the job back when I captured you, don't you think? That's true, she paused, her frown remaining. Fine, I will eat your chocolates. The maid was hesitant, but she took a bite. Slowly, a smile formed on her face. This is delicious. She began munching on the chocolates like she was starving. Icardi could hardly believe himself. Not even he had thought the proud Lackmodian girl would go nuts for chocolate. Whoa, he cried. Slow down, Inspector. But Arlena ignored Marco, and soon there was nothing left of the snack he gave her. And Arlena's lips were dirtied by chocolate. Marco grinned. So you like it then? Yes, Arlena stopped, having caught herself. Miss Spectre? Once again, the girl's frown returned. Do you think that this changes anything, Earthborn? We're still enemies. Yes, Icardi said, nodding. Yes, we are, Miss Spectre. Then why are you doing this? Because our Lord commanded us to love our enemies. Arlena was surprised, to say the least. She looked at the Earthborn like he was insane. Love our enemies? That sounds like nonsense to me. The only good enemy is a dead enemy. I'm sorry you feel that way, responded Icardi. Since you love those chocolates so much, I can give you my share every week. Arlena's eyes widened. Yes, please. But the girl caught herself once more. She pouted. I mean, if you want to waste your time and resource on me, your enemy, then I won't stop you. But before Marco could respond, the prison guard approached him. Sergeant, Captain Nier is looking for you. He said you're 10 minutes over your time. Crap, Marco said with a grimace. With regret, he turned to Arlena. Well, I'll see you later, Miss Spectre, and he left in a hurry. The prison guard was to follow suit, but Arlena, having paid attention to the conversation, realized something odd. Wait, she said. He was here on his free time? Apparently. Why? I thought he was just trying to draw information out of me. Icardi? The prison guard shook his head. No, he's an altar boy, that one. Ever since Arlena Spectre was detained by the Earthborn, uncertainty had dominated her mind. By now the Maiden of Lackmodus had one thing she could be certain of, the deliciousness of chocolates. So let me take a break, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes, and we'll finish up the last two that I have for you here. I'll be back shortly. During this break, I wish to ask for a donation of any amount to help me keep this podcast going. I'm fine with whatever you can afford, using whatever currency you want. I have set up a donation tab on the Crann Stories and Poetry webpage at rss.com and a donation page on my website at www.crannabihah.com using PayPal for your security. Don't worry about the exchange rates, as PayPal takes care of that for us. If you like this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share it with everyone you know in your social circles, as the writers I showcase in this podcast deserve all the exposure they can get. I created this podcast for them because I love to read their work, and I believe it should be shared with the whole world. Now I want to explain how to find my website. Since this show is audio only, just write down the website name from the podcast image showing here and search for it. Visitors finding the website for the first time will reach the welcome page to learn a little bit about what's inside. You'll see the homepage link at the bottom of the page. Click on it if you wish to enter my world. Once on the homepage, you'll see the menu bar at the top where there are links to the pages in the website. Feel free to look around all you want. If you should happen to buy one of my books, all the better. Thank you for your support. Welcome back. So what I have for you here for my third story this week is a scary science fiction story. It's entitled Don't Read, It's Life-Threatening by Nevena Paskaleva. She published this in First Line Fiction. The voice in her head kept screaming that she would regret this, but there was no chance in hell she could stop. The book was terribly interesting. What a bland way to express what she was feeling. The book was interesting. No, it wasn't like that. It wasn't a book. It was a world. Every time she opened its pages, she plunged into it, and the familiar reality disappeared, replaced with something that wasn't simply interesting, it was mesmerizing. Helen knew she'd end up with eyes as swollen as overripe tomatoes, just as red. She knew that if she kept going like this, she would probably be blind in 10 years. The doctor had warned her. You're not young anymore. Replace reading with listening to audiobooks. You want to keep your sight until old age, don't you? But listening wasn't like reading. It never was. Yes, she wanted to stop. She wanted to protect her poor eyes. But how could she overcome an addiction like that? It was stronger than any drug she had known. She had placed hundreds of sticky notes around the apartment, screaming at her in black letters, "Don't read!" But she ignored them, as if a different hand had written them, not her own. She leaned back against the pillow, grabbed the book, opened it, and heaved a sigh of deep satisfaction. And she disappeared. Gray metal walls surrounded her. She lay on a hard metal table, her arms and legs secured to the edges with iron clasps. She tried to move, but could only arch her back a few inches. Where am I? What's happening? A strange warmth was flowing through her veins, and she felt a weakness spreading through her body, growing by the second. Soon, the only movement she was capable of was blinking. The light streaming above her intensified. 4 familiar figures surrounded her. They were 2 meters tall, blue-skinned, and wore tight white clothes that resembled gym attire. Their red hair was tied up in perfectly round buns. The aliens. Mir, Kor, Teal, and Allah. Those were their names. She would never forget a book's characters' names. There was Allah's black birthmark right next to her beakish nose, just as the author had described it. They were humanoid creatures from planet Ao, breathing oxygen like humans, but in greater quantities. Their technology was far ahead of the earthly one. They wanted to help human beings, and they... Am I reading right now? Helen wondered, her mind dimming along with her vision. Yes, I must be deeply immersed in the book, but its world has never felt so real. Maybe reading has finally made me lose my mind. Hello, Helen, Mir said, his thin blue lips stretching into a wide smile, revealing tiny, sharply pointed pink teeth. They don't have sex. They are both male and female. That's what's so fascinating about them. They reproduce by inseminating their own bodies. Their relationships are only spiritual on a communal level. Yet they... I know what you're thinking, Mir said. You wonder why the author never mentioned what our food is. You're not there yet, Helen. You're only on page 140. It becomes clear at the end. Well, what's happening to me? The words escaped her lips, were no louder than a whisper, barely stirring the cold air of the room. We took you here with us, Kor spoke up, nodding slightly as if in time to a piece of music playing in his head, to our planet, just for a little while. We want to help you. We want to help all humans. But I know you're afraid. When we wrote the book, we allowed some subtlety about us. It hints that not everything is quite right with us. Yet its ending is good, Helen. You'll see. We eat humans, Teal explained, picking up a small triangular machine and pressing a button on the side. The device gave off a silvery glow, and Helen blinked harder. She realized the blinking had sent 2 stinging tears on a lonely trip down her burning cheeks. We've been eating humans for as long as both of our races have existed. We don't need much, just enough to keep our race sated and yours, well, your population under control. All those wars on Earth, all those sicknesses, we caused them to take what we needed from dying humans. It's only 1 or 2 organs, nothing more. A very small amount keeps us fed for years. The triangular machine started purring gently, like a contented kitten. Teal lifted it over Helen's face, and the silver glow mixed with the bright light from the ceiling, creating the illusion of smoke curling from the chimneys in the middle of a hot summer day. We'll take your eyes, Helen, Teal said. That's all we need from you. A giant iron fist of terror grabbed her, smashing her heart to pieces. No, she squealed, feebly trying to move, to wriggle out of the chains, but she couldn't budge. She was trapped. Her life was over. Everything was over. Everything... Don't worry, Kor said, still nodding his head to the inaudible music as he reached down and placed a cool, slender hand on her forehead. I told you, we want to help humans, to repay their kindness. They've been ensuring our survival for thousands of years. It's high time we gave something back. Helen could no longer make a sound. Her entire body, including her vocal cords, was paralyzed. She couldn't even blink. The room grew dimmer, fading into a pleasant, warm grayness. The last words she heard were unaccompanied by a face. We'll take your eyes, but we'll give you new ones, Helen. Eyes that will never tire. Eyes sharper than an eagle's, immune to any disease or deterioration. You'll be able to read as much as you want. They'll never betray you. Helen disappeared. She woke up, realizing it was evening because all the lights in the living room were on, and her husband was leaning over her. She was lying on the sofa, the open book resting on her stomach. The outline of every object around her was shatteringly clear. I must have fallen asleep while reading. Gosh, I must have been really tired. And again, I dreamed of being in the book. Happens with almost every novel I read, although it's never been this scary. Helen, what's happening? Her husband asked, placing a hand over hers. Helen could see the blue veins pulsing beneath the spotted brown texture of his skin and the velvety tinge of his thin brown hairs. You were sleeping like a log. I made so much noise in the kitchen, but you didn't budge. You scared me. I was tired, she mumbled, still unable to take her eyes off Bob's hand, which now looked like a masterpiece by the most famous painter in the world. Helen, she heard his voice rise, suddenly thin with concern. Helen, why have your eyes gotten so big? Why are they golden? My last for you this week is a poem. It's entitled Whispers of Innocence, The Children of Palestine, a poem by Creative Capricorn, and he published this in long after the thrill. In the cradle of the olive trees, where the sun once kissed the skies, a symphony of laughter danced beneath the stars' watchful eyes. But shadows stretch across the land where children used to play. Now echoes of their fragile dreams are swept by war's cruel sway. O little hearts, so small yet bold, scattered like seeds in the dust, bearing the weight of a world so cold, in hope and pain they trust. With eyes like wells of ancient stories, reflecting the night in the blaze, they yearn for playgrounds, not gory glories, but find only smoky haze. The streets once vibrant, now lie in despair, where the laughter has been drowned, in the silence that festers a chilling prayer for peace that is nowhere found. Dolls with tattered clothes sweep in the dark, while mothers clutch their fears. Each tear-stained night leaves a bitter mark in the cacophony of their tears. O gentle voices of innocent lost, where is the world's embrace? Why does it turn, like shadows tossed, from the anguish etched on each face? From distant lands they watch in silence, as the clock ticks sorrow's song, while children cry for a childlike balance in a world that's gone so wrong. Amongst the rubble, dreams are buried, beneath the weight of stone and strife, as the flicker of hope, so weary and hurried, fights to reclaim a life. Underneath the burden of nightly fears, dreams of laughter drift afar, while the glittering eyes of innocent years look up to a distant star. O world of power, where is your might? Why not use it for the meek? Do you not hear the children's plight in whispers too soft to speak? The columns of leaders rise high and proud, free from the cries of the weak, but remember, beneath every roaring crowd, the hearts of the helpless seek. As rockets blaze across the night and the sirens wail their mournful tune, in the hearts of children, flickering light dares to dream of a peaceful moon. Where are the champions of justice and grace, the voices that shatter the chains? Where do they turn from this anguished place as suffering quietly reigns? A world so vast, yet so indifferent, why is compassion cast aside? Innocence crushed, dreams made transient, while nations silently bide. Each life lost is a story unheard, each wound a testament to pain, yet hope still stirs with the beating word in the hearts of the lost refrain. So let us weep for these children of fire, let us raise our voices high, for every lost dream we must aspire to restore what the world denies. For peace is a song that all voices must sing, each heart must join the refrain. And until hope takes flight on undaunted wing, we will remember their names. In the cradle of the olive trees may laughter return to the skies, for every whisper of innocence seized must waken the world to rise. So let us not turn away from their plight, let our hearts become their shield, for together we'll rise in our shared human right, our love their strength revealed. And so that's all I have for everyone this week. I hope that I've brought enough of everything to you to make your week a little get a little bit better here the weekend. And I'll be back again next week with more stories and poems. Sláinte. Guramahagat. Thank you for listening to the show today. I hope you enjoyed the variety of stories and poems again this week. If you like the show, please like, subscribe, and reply, as this goes a long way towards reaching more listeners around the world. As a Shanké, I hope you will allow me to continue delighting you with a story or poem here under the crown of beatha. Maybe they will bring you a smile, take you away from your troubles for a time. As I say goodbye this week, I wish to leave you with this Irish blessing as you go about your day. May your path rise up to meet you, and the sun warm your bonnet as you walk down the lane to the pub. May your friends and relations bring you a pint after you retell these stories and poems I give you here. Slán go fóill. Goodbye for now.